In Magic the Gathering, there are certainly no shortages of tragic tales of fallen heroes and twisted fates. On no other plane does this seem to happen more often than on the godly world of Theros. Time after time, we bear witness to fallen warriors fighting for a corrupted cause, gods playing with the very mortals that worship and give them power, and heroes made to grieve over their loss. This is the all too common tragedy of one such hero, Daxos, the love of one Elspeth Tirel. This is the story the cards don't tell you about Daxos, fallen hero and love of Elspeth. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Aether Hub. I'm Simon, bringing you more Magic the Gathering lore. Now, with a dramatic intro like that, this better be a damn dramatic video, and I don't think it'll disappoint. Let's get into the lore of Daxos, the fallen hero, freed zombie who managed to ascend to the status of demigod in the light of Heliod. And don't worry, all of that's gonna make a lot more sense soon. But first we have to answer the question, how did this character get to be Daxos, blessed by the sun? Daxos grew up like many others as a pious man in the polis of Meletis. He worshipped the major gods of the pantheon, Heliod that brought the sun, Thassa who filled the seas with the fish that sustained his family, and many more. Though he trained as a skilled warrior, he did so to bring strength and practice to the gods, to defend his people, to be a true hero. Yet his life would change forever when a young, beautiful woman stumbled her way through the outskirts of Meletis. That was none other than Elspeth Tirel. Daxos didn't know, but Elspeth wasn't from Theros. She was a Planeswalker, and this was her second visit to this plane. Yet still, Daxos wasn't shocked when the mysterious woman asked, "What's this world called?" That's literally her first line to Daxos. As Theros is a plane frequently visited by beings known as the Nyxborn, abstract creations of the gods, perhaps she was a wandering avatar of the gods. This, of course, wasn't the case, but their relationship would end up transcending the pantheon nonetheless. Elspeth was in conflict with Heliod, god of the sun, who accused the Planeswalker of theft as she wielded a weapon of Nyx. Heliod didn't realize that this sword was actually taken off Theros when she first visited the plane as a young child. The weapon quite literally fell out of the sky and into her lap. Still, seeing a mere mortal with such a gift left Heliod with little recourse. But even with his insane godly powers, Elspeth, being a planeswalker with a unique kit of powers herself, was able to rebuke the attack. So of course Heliod decided to make Elspeth his champion, rather than admit that he couldn't kill a simple mortal. Her first mission as the Sun God's champion was to stop a rampaging Hydra who had killed several brave warriors and heroes. And who better to help in this fight than the great Daxos of Meletis? What's a tragedy without triumph, right? Daxos and Elspeth worked together to defeat the Hydra, cementing Elspeth's place as champion of the greatest god in the pantheon. Still, there was more to do on Theros. A place Elspeth now saw as home, a place she could finally be happy and rest. She has her own tragic story to tell, but that's for another video. The Nyxborn, which Daxos now realized Elspeth wasn't a part of, were on the warpath against the mortals of Theros. Worse still, raging minotaurs were sieging the polis of Akros. Oracles and Sphinx foretold doom and destruction. Elspeth and Daxos set off to help in whatever way they could. Unfortunately, all of this was just a ploy by a plotting planeswalker, a satyr named Xenagos, who wanted to ascend as a god himself. Elspeth and Daxos just happened to be the perfect tools in his machinations. The satyr gave Elspeth and Daxos information on how they could stop the Minotaurs and Nyxborn without losing a single soldier, by filling the river near their camps to flood the forces away from Akros. The pair took the stranger's advice, and their victory was assured. That night, a giant celebration would be held in Elspeth's honor, the champion of the sun. But this is exactly what Xenagos wanted. Through the unprecedented revels of that victory, the devotion to debauchery elevated Xenagos to a god, but he left Elspeth and Daxos with a parting gift for their participation. Xenagos used his magic to bring forth one of the worst nightmares of Elspeth's past, her torture at the hands of the Phyrexians, a great threat of another plane that she thought herself free of. In her panic, as nightmares came rushing back, she swung out with a sharp object, killing this figment of her imagination. Yet, as the sleep fell from her eyes, she witnessed her tragedy. The Phyrexian she killed in her dreams was in fact her beloved Daxos. He died there with his love, never regretting his choice in her. He passed to the Underworld. Within the realm of Erebos, god of the dead, the story of Daxos wasn't over. He pined for his love, despite her, murdering him. He longed to be with Elspeth again. Luckily, there is a means for the dead to return to the world of the living on Theros, but it comes with a great cost. Erebos allows those who give up their past, their memories, personalities, everything that make them who they are, to become a returned. The returned are essentially the zombies of Theros. They're basically just like normal people, but in order to gain passage, they must replace their likeness with a golden facade. They can no longer form new memories or any real connections with anyone else, thus leaving them hollow. Erebos gained a certain joy in creating the returned, these tragic souls who experienced loss but could never live again in a world made for the living. They were the embodiment of death, his domain, walking free among the living. In the case of Daxos, a special condition was allowed. Erebos relished in the man's tragic circumstance, so he allowed him to keep his memory of Elspeth so that he would wander Theros forever looking for his love and living in eternal grief. Erebos allowed this because the god already knew Daxos would never find his love among the living. Elspeth had already died fighting the false god Xenagos, betrayed by her god Heliod, and was entering the Underworld. Daxos, even with this tragic gambit, would not see his love, just missing her in the Underworld. As their story continues into Theros Beyond Death, the tragedy of the love between Daxos and Elspeth hits ever-saddening notes. As one becomes redeemed, their fates appear to be interlocked, with destiny playing a dark trick on the couple which could never be. Daxos is saved by his wandering grief, as the sun god Heliod appears to bring life back to the once favored hero of Meletis. In restoring the life of Daxos, he no longer is a returned, but becomes a demigod, chosen by the greatest of the gods to be his new celestial champion of Nyx, a force in a war between the gods themselves. With this power, however, comes strict obedience to his god, not one earned out of admiration or piety, but forced out of fear and manipulation. Quickly, Daxos realized that his will was no longer his own, as Heliod ordered his demigod to destroy every mention of any other god in his home polis of Meletis. In a war between gods, devotion is everything. It's the difference between existence and oblivion. In destroying the worship of the other gods, Heliod in fact strengthens his own position in the pantheon. Though this is against the very nature of Daxos, he has no choice but to obey. The tragedy is made worse when you realize why he chose the fallen and returned Daxos to raise to divinity. Heliod is the god responsible for the death of Elspeth, Daxos' love. He now serves the god who killed the person he holds most dear, the one he's been longing for since his untimely end. Worse still, Heliod is preparing for a fight with Elspeth, a mortal he actually fears because she knows more as a planeswalker than he ever could stuck in Nyx on Theros. Elspeth spits on Heliod's ego, and the sun god will stop at nothing to punish this mortal in the worst ways possible. Having his new champion be the love of Elspeth fight for him is the best punishment he could imagine. This is the tragic tale of Daxos and Elspeth, love that has gone through hell, literally, and are destined to violently collide in a clash between gods. Daxos went from being murdered by the woman he loved, Elspeth being manipulated by Xenagos at the time, to sacrificing his own identity and living in grief for all time as a return just for a chance to be with her again, only to find that Elspeth was in the same underworld he had just escaped from. Now, after his greatest triumph becoming the Demigod of Heliod, Daxos will have to fight his love by order and command of the god who killed her in the first place. No matter who wins in this inevitable fight, Daxos and Elspeth will be the losers, as this tragic tale tells us the mortals and their lives are nothing to the gods who play with them like dolls. But there is a caveat. As Theros Beyond Death doesn't actually have official lore or story to it, we're given bits and pieces of the story, and the cards kind of fill in the blanks, and believe me, there's a lot of blanks. We're never told that Heliod making Daxos his demigod eventually leads to this titanic fight between ex-loves. All we know is that Elspeth eventually defeats Heliod and spends some minor time with Daxos before planeswalking away to whatever adventure awaits her next. Of course, to me, this is a very unsatisfying ending to what could have been a very, very epic tale. And of course, I'm left also unsatisfied at the fact that they just spend some time chilling together before Elspeth leaves her love, for no particular reason either. I mean, she really loves Theros. It's like her first place where she feels like at home again. So I'm not really sure what spurs her into leaving Theros now that she's freed herself from the Underworld and defeated Heliod and is with her love again, but hey, that's kind of the cost of not having official lore to a set. Anyway, Daxos has lived through one of the hardest stories to tell in all of Magic the Gathering. A story that goes deeper than any of the cards you find in the game. And of course, that story gets even worse with Theros Beyond Death. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and tick that notification bell so you never miss out on a new video. And until next time, guys, see ya!